Tonight, an asbestos scare at the Whyalla Steelworks and a security boost for our regional doctors in the sky.
From our 7 Spencer Golf Studios, your nightly news with Casey Treelaw begins now.
Good evening. Whyalla Steelworks operations are back to normal after an asbestos scare last week. Workers in the caster were ordered off site late Thursday after traces of the material was found in the area.
Asbestos remains a common part of many homes and workplaces, but its fibres have proven to be deadly, with contamination issues treated with extreme caution. It's a substance nobody wants to find in the workplace. However, it almost turned into the case for employees at the Whyalla Steelworks last week.
There were some concerns on Thursday. It came to me that there was traces of asbestos found in some powder they used in the caster.
In a statement, GFG confirmed the incident. Caster operations were shut down after traces were found in a product, believed to be a powder, used in the steelmaking process. SafeWork SA and McMahon Services were tasked with decontaminating the area. Airborne and surface testing were conducted over the weekend, with the results coming back clean, with the caster reopened yesterday afternoon. Mr. Martin says the company dealt with the situation in a professional manner.
Very good at getting everybody on the site together that was affected in that area, getting them in for meetings, being consultative, telling everyone what was going on.
7 Spencer Golf understands Blue Scope Steel at Wollongong and other places around the world also had similar issues with this batch. Mr. Martin says he expects answers from the company who made the product as to how this could occur.
Production stop, which means it's cost the company a fair bit of money in lost production. So I'm sure they'll be investigating now, and I know there's some people that aren't too happy.
Investigations continue while all batches have been quarantined. John Hunt, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Police are warning Port Augusta businesses to be on high alert after a spike in reports of stolen copper. 6 thefts of copper pipe or wiring have been reported to authorities over recent weeks, including 3 from business properties. The thefts occurring on Elizabeth Terrace, Hospital Road, Conroy Street, Fern Street and at Port Patterson. Anyone with information about these thefts is urged to call Crime Stoppers on 1800 333 000. 3 people have been arrested after allegedly breaking into a shed near Clare on Wednesday morning last week. The owner of the property pursued the suspects, driving a Mitsubishi utility without number plates. 2 23-year-old men have been charged with aggravated serious criminal trespass and theft and will appear in the Clare Magistrates Court on the 14th of May. A 16-year-old girl is facing the same charges and will appear in Clare Youth Court. Police are still searching for a 4th suspect. Port Pirie's public spaces just got a little bit safer following a federal grant of $95,000 to increase community security. The money will be primarily spent on surveillance of the town's new sporting precinct.
If you ever get the feeling that you're being watched, you might be right. A number of surveillance cameras are being put up around Port Pirie with the support of a new federal grant.
The government's had an ongoing program of a Safer Communities Fund, which local councils, communities can pitch into.
Port Pirie Regional Council has received $95,000 to spend on ramping up security in the community spaces. 4 additional CCTV cameras will be put up around town, which will be monitored by local police.
SAPOL will be able to watch what's going on. They'll have a little bit more control over the cameras and it'll also give us a good feedback of what's happening in our community.
Protecting the newly built sporting precinct from vandalism was one of the council's key reasons for tightening up security.
Largely it will focus around the new sports precinct and making sure that we've got coverage there with cameras.
Local police say this year has seen a growing trend of criminals targeting local sporting centres. Several clubs in the Mid-North and York Peninsula regions have reported break-ins since January.
Having the cameras on them, it gives them an opportunity for us to pick up on these people and perhaps prosecute.
6 existing sites will also be upgraded to help improve detection of crime, with additional security signage to be added to public spaces. Dominic Beaton, 7 Spencer Golf News.
The Lincoln Gap wind farm outside of Port Augusta is just a few steps away from switching on. It comes after the successful energisation of the site's main substation. Following necessary safety checks, overhead power lines and wind turbines will be powered up, and it's just weeks away before the first production of energy.
From the end of March, we'll be producing clean renewable power to the local area.
Nexif Energy says it's looking to add new technologies to the project, potentially making it a renewable energy hub. Environmentalists are hoping population figures of the Australian sea lion will upset plans for oil exploration in the Great Australian Bight, with plans this week to consider upgrading the animals to an endangered species.
They're known as the pups of the sea, attracting thousands of tourists to the Eyre Peninsula every year. But these sea lions could be the next barrier in halting plans for oil exploration in the Great Australian Bight.
They live along the Great Australian Bight in southern Western Australia, so their only home is right in the path of an oil spill.
Experts are meeting this week to consider upgrading the endangered listing of the species, 11 years after the International Authority last upgraded the status.
Endangered status gives them a kind of higher profile, might raise some bigger concerns with the authorities and ask them to consider stronger regulation to protect these species.
As part of Equinor's environmental plan, the energy company released a map modelling an oil spill.
An oil spill that could reach as far as northern New South Wales. It could be absolutely one of the worst disasters ever in the oil industry if it was to occur, and there's always a risk.
More than 10,000 seals live along the Great Australian Bight, and it is one of the most important breeding grounds for the species. Nathan Regter, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Still to come tonight, Qantas cuts back flights between Adelaide and Port Lincoln, and a female farmer recognised for ideas about native bush food production. Welcome back. Qantas flights are being cut back from the Adelaide to Port Lincoln route, with the airline trying to reduce expenditure. Customers are being told the changes will not have an effect on the cost of flights.
They're the nation's biggest airline, but they're cutting back trips to the Eyre Peninsula. Qantas announcing that they're pulling the pin on several flights between Adelaide and Lincoln.
Yeah, they're cutting their flights back as a cost-saving measure.
Qantas Link staff currently stay the night at Port Lincoln during layover, an expense the airline wants to reduce. This could result in remaining flights becoming busier.
It might mean that there are more passengers on the existing flights, so it might not make any difference to passenger numbers, but that remains to be seen.
With 4 weekly flights to be removed, the earliest flight out of Port Lincoln will now leave at 7:30 in the morning instead of 6:45.
I believe the first flight out of Adelaide, therefore, is quite early at 6:15, 6:30ish.
One of the flights being axed will be the new service between Adelaide and Kangaroo Island, as new terminals and runways at KI's airport opened up last year, expanding their capacity.
It'll just make a change to flight travel arrangements for people to make.
The 4 weekly flights will be cut from March 31st. Nathan Regter, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
The Royal Flying Doctors Service in the far north is welcoming an injection of more than $450,000. The federal funding boost will help improve security in remote communities.
For over 90 years, their workers have tended to those in need in remote areas, and a new funding injection will ensure the workers themselves are protected. A federal grant of more than $467,000 will allow the RFDS to upgrade security measures in Marla, Andamuka and Maree.
If we're going to send people to these remote communities, we need to be sure that they're going to be properly looked after and they're safe.
CCTV cameras, duress lighting, as well as improved security doors and fences will be installed at the 3 clinics. The 24/7 Communications Centre in Port Augusta will be able to monitor the sites remotely.
So it's a package deal to make it safe for the remote area nurses that live and work in those areas.
The Remote Health Service has already spent over $1 million of their own money to begin the upgrades. Safety and protection of their workers has been a big priority since the tragic 2016 murder of remote area nurse Gail Woodford in the APY lands.
You're on your own, there's not much backup out there, so we need to make it safe and secure.
All the remote area clinics currently have 2 staff, But the RFDS says it will shift to a 3-staff model to ease the pressure on healthcare workers.
We're hoping that that will also help us attract and retain good quality staff.
Garth Burley, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
An Eyre Peninsula project aiming at tackling challenges of campsite infrastructure is seeking community feedback. Known as Eyes on Eyre, the development focuses on gaining public feedback to improve locations. Concept plans were designed outlining potential upgrades and improvements to popular campsites. The first round of upgrades will look at 10 camping spots, including Fishery Bay and Farm Beach. As part of the 9 public forums, there will also be an online survey to collect feedback. Members of the Whyalla community can have their say on the proposed Bennett Oval redevelopment. Residents can take part in a survey, while an information session will be held at Westlands on March 14. The new grandstand will feature better shade, improved change rooms, along with new food and drink facilities. Lighting and the turf will also be replaced. The survey can be found at Council's website, while hard copies are available at their offices. Surveys are due back by March 22. Mid-North farmer Natalie Somerville has been announced as a finalist for the 2019 South Australian AgriFutures Rural Women's Award. She's being acknowledged for her interest in native bush food production.
Putting a focus back on native flora, Natalie Somerville is hoping to expand South Australia's native bush food industry.
Economic, social and environmental benefits from this project.
Natalie has been nominated as one of 4 finalists in South Australia's AgriFutures Rural Women's Award. If she takes out first place, it'll help kickstart Natalie's dream, with a prize pool of $10,000 to spend on research. And she believes there's a possible window of opportunity to get the industry up and running. Bush food is a contentious industry, with international companies obtaining patents and royalties on native plants. Many Aboriginal groups have called it out as cultural appropriation.
There's a lot of tension in this area, and I just feel we just have to address this now before it goes any further.
In mid to low rainfall regions, Natalie sees a world of untapped potential.
This is kangaroo grass seed, and I think this is where a lot of potential could be.
It's a native grass, which has the potential to be harvested and turned into bread. It's extremely durable and stands up well during drought.
Potential to graze it as well. So, you know, it really fits into a farming system quite well.
The winner of the Rural Women's Award will be announced on March 28. Dominic Beaton, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Stay with us after the break. Port Augusta boxers fight their way to the top, and we'll have this week's weather details with Nicole. 2 Port Augusta boxers have made promising starts to their careers after winning their first fights in Adelaide over the weekend. Liam Booth and Stephen Hutchins both making their debut in the ring. Stephen won his bout on a unanimous decision after he and his opponent battled it out for the full 3 rounds, while Liam's time in the ring was short-lived as he claimed victory by 1 technical knockout after the referee was forced to stop the fight in the 2nd round. Now time for a look at this weekend's cricket results. In Whyalla, Rapina upped their chances of finishing 2nd after a shock win over the Centrals. John Hunt joins us now, and John, it was a big boost for the Roos.
It was, Casey. Rapina had been in good form, but this was a big test against a team already through to the grand final. In tough conditions, their bowlers restricted Centrals to 171, with a century from Greg Feebig helping them reach the target. Centrals couldn't get any kind of rhythm going, with wickets taken at regular intervals by a disciplined attack. Brad Smith made a well-earned 67, and while 4 batsmen made scores between 16 and 24, none were able to go on with it. In reply, veteran Greg Feebig belted Central's bowlers to all corners of Memorial Oval, scoring an impressive century. His 105 included 12 fours, as Rapina eased to the win with 23 overs to spare. The victory ended the Roosters' 10-game winning streak ahead of the finals. In the other match, North reminded the comp of their credentials with an 8-wicket win, with the target chased down in 8 overs. Over in Port Pirie, Wandera are through to the grand final after a 4-wicket win over Solomon Town North. Sollies will play props in the prelim next week. It was the final round of Port Augusta cricket. Our own Garth Burley top scored with 31 for West Augusta, but it wasn't nearly enough, with South warming up for the finals with an easy 9-wicket win, while Central Stirling had an upset win over Quorn. In Port Lincoln, Tasman were too strong for Charlton. Southern Air had a win over Lincoln South, while Todd River held off Waybacks. And in Broken Hill, North beat West, and South had a narrow win over Central. So that's all this week as we reach the pointy end of the season. Plenty of other sport happening across the region, and I'll bring you those results tomorrow night.
And time to take a look at what's happening in the weather. Here's Nicole.
Thanks, Casey. Well, we had warm conditions across the entire region today, set to settle in for the rest of the week. Port Augusta reaching a very hot top of 40 degrees, Whyalla 38, Port Lincoln and Broken Hill both 34, Port Pirie 39 and Adelaide mostly fine and 37. On the satellite today, skies are almost totally clear over SA due to a high to the south sending dry southerly winds across the region. Looking at the waters for tomorrow, southeasterly to southwesterly winds at 15 to 20 knots and seas at 1.5 metres. We'll see sunrise at 7:03 and sunset just after 8 p.m. It's looking to be a hot and sunny day tomorrow. Port Augusta 40 degrees, Whyalla 35, Port Lincoln 28, Coffin Bay 31, Woodner 40, Quorn 38, Broken Hill 36, Port Pirie and Clare both 37, Cleve 33, Kadina and Adelaide also sunny and 36. Looking ahead into the week, it will warm up by the end of the week in Port Lincoln, 31 for Wednesday. Cleve expecting a few more hot days, 40 by Friday, and some hot days for Woodner, temperatures sticking to the 40s. Whyalla 39 by Friday, Port Augusta, those hot temperatures not going anywhere, and Kadina 37 both Wednesday and Thursday. Port Pirie and Clare very similar conditions, 37 and 38 for Wednesday and Thursday. Broken Hill temperatures will remain in the high 30s. And that's all for tonight's weather, Casey. Back to you.
Thanks for that, Nicole. And that's the local news this Monday evening. Thanks for joining us. I'll have updates later. Until then, enjoy your evening. Good night.